Hey Eagle fans, it's EaglefanKarl, and for those of you who watched my prediction video for the Giants game, you know that my cousin and I took the trip up the New Jersey Turnpike to enjoy that game. And I'm going to get to some of the highlights we had from our day from the game in a moment, but first I want to talk a little bit about the Pro Bowl voting that happened and the announcements that were made yesterday as to who made the Pro Bowl. And of course, the news came out that the Eagles are going to be sending 6 players to the Pro Bowl, 4 on offense and 2 on defense. The 2 guys making it on defense are perennials. They've been there before, Malcolm Jenkins and Fletcher Cox. The 4 guys on offense, 2 on the offensive line, which is fantastic. Both of those guys really deserve it, Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks. And Zach Ertz, as a tight end, is having a great year, really a career year, a breakout year for him. We've been all waiting for this year for a while now, and he really, I think, took a step forward and was one of the best tight ends in football this year. So kudos to him for making the Pro Bowl this year. And then, of course, the last guy that makes it is sort of bittersweet, that he got some recognition for the great season he had, and that, of course, is Carson Wentz, named the NFC starting quarterback for the Pro Bowl. Obviously, we weren't hoping he was going to play in the Pro Bowl anyway, hoping that the reason he wouldn't was because we'd be playing in the Super Bowl, but instead he will not be playing regardless of what happens in the playoffs because of the injury, and it's bittersweet because he was having such a great season, probably would have been an MVP had he been able to finish the year, but really for the first 13 games of the season, there was really nobody that was playing as well as Carson Wentz, and for that, it's great to see that he got some recognition for the Pro Bowl and was named as the starting NFC quarterback. Now, I know there's been a lot of people that are upset about guys of Eagles that they thought got snubbed and deserved to get on. The 2 names that come up, that I've seen a lot come up, have been Kelce and Brandon Graham. And in one of those cases, I think that there's a legitimate argument. In another, I think it's a little harder. I think Kelce clearly had a Pro Bowl level year. I think that when you look at the guys that were selected over him, I didn't watch every Falcons game for Alex Mack, and I didn't watch every Cowboys game for Travis Frederick, so I can't necessarily say that Kelce had a better season than either of those 2. But I know those 2 guys have a little bit more of a reputation. Kelce has made a Pro Bowl in the past, but he obviously had a down year last year. A lot of us were down on him, including myself. But he really rose to the challenge this year, and a lot of the critics that were on him, he really rose to the occasion and had a great season. One of the best pulling centers in the game in terms of the running game that we've got. And when you've got a team that's got as solid of a running game as the Eagles do, you've really got to look at a guy who's making that happen, which is Kelce, because our running backs alone are not doing it, and that's shown the fact that no running backs made it because the carries are really divided evenly, which says a lot then about the offensive line. And Kelce is the leader of that offensive line, so it's really a shame that I think that Kelce did not get in there, because I think certainly he deserved to get in there. I know Eagles fans are a little bit more upset about Brandon Graham getting in. In that instance, I think it's a little harder to make the argument, only because if you compare Brandon Graham with the 3 guys that got in over him, it's harder to make an argument that he had a better season than any of those 3 guys. If you compare his statistics with any of the 3 guys that got in over him, those guys had more tackles, they had more sacks, they had at least the same amount or more forced fumbles. So there was no statistic that Brandon Graham was ahead of any of those 3 guys in, so it's a little harder to make that argument. Now, the one thing I will say in Brandon Graham's defense, maybe more so than some of these other guys, is he's probably a more complete defensive lineman that he's been even in the past. He's been really solid against the run this year. And he's not just a pass rusher anymore. It's really shown that he is a solid all-around defensive end. But the guys that got in over him, really, when you've got guys that are getting in over him that have more tackles and all of that stuff, I think it really goes to show that those guys probably had at least as good, or if not better, seasons than Brandon Graham. I think this is probably where Brandon Graham gets a little bit hurt by the rotation that the Eagles use, where those guys probably are not having as many plays off as he is. So Brandon Graham probably gets hurt on some of that. But unfortunately, you know, it is what it is, and I think that you can't really say that he deserved to go in over any of those three guys. But let's go ahead and take a look at the Eagles game on Sunday and the Giants. Like I said, we had a great time going up there. I had taken some video that day that I sort of put together, and with some of my thoughts from right after the game. We did a video in the van before we came home. So with that, hope you enjoy this little taste of what we experienced up at MetLife Stadium on Sunday. Hey, Eagles fans. So we're on our way up. We just stopped at the rest area on the New Jersey Turnpike, and we saw a lot of Eagles fans in there, so we're excited.
We're taking over.
We're taking over North Jersey today. Woo! Okay, Eagles fans, we're here. We're ready to go, and we think there's probably a pretty good amount of Birds fans here. What do you say?
We took over.
We took over. All right, we'll check in after the game. Woo! E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagle! Yeah! These last two clips are from the final stand that the Eagles made, and not to brag, but I think the Eagles fans had a lot to do with it. Especially if you look at Eli Manning's quote from after the game when he said, "There's not a whole lot of great 4th and goal from the 12 plays. Obviously, you have more options from the 5. From the 5, we had a different play called where you get 4 guys in the end zone, 5 guys in the end zone with a back possibly. From the 10, it's just tough to get everybody in the end zone with routes and things going. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I had the false start. It's a tough situation. I don't blame Bobby. At home, it's loud. Brett Jones couldn't hear me call the cadence. You don't think having that at home, but I guess when you've only won 2 games, there's a lot of Eagles fans and they were loud and we couldn't hear the cadence. That's why we jumped off sides." That's the quote from Eli Manning post-game. So obviously the Eagles had a lot to do with it, and that was right in the end zone where we were sitting. So these last 2 clips are the offsides and then the final stop. Hey, Eagle fans, it's EaglefanKarl, and we just got out. The game's over. A little too close to comfort, if you ask me, but we pulled it out, and if the defense keeps playing like that, I think we got problems. So hopefully this was just one of those one-game aberrations, 3rd game on the road kind of thing, and we can move past this. We've got the first-round bye locked up. I'm not going to go through a whole, studs and duds right now. I might save that for later in the week or for next week's preview game or something like that. But we're not going to go through all that. But Steven here's also with me. So big win.
Yes.
Really, we had a great day, I think.
We did.
Yeah, it was a very enjoyable day. We sat next to a guy who was very chatty.
Very chatty.
And typical New York guy. If anyone's seen the movie My Cousin Vinny, very much like that. But
that was our man.
He was a fun guy to be with. Giants fan, but he was nice. And, we had a little bit of razzing going back and forth as the game went, because it was really a back and forth kind of game. And, anything else you want to add? Or
I'm looking at you, Darby, to improve your game.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that makes Darby probably not the complete go to this game is the fact that he had the interception that sort of saved us. But all in all, I think the special teams probably won this game for us.
Yes.
They're the ones that, they came up with you come up with a block extra point, a block punt, and a block field goal all in the same game. And you say, the blocked field goal and the blocked extra point, that's 4 points right there. But then the blocked extra point also causes them to go for 2 later in the game. So that's really 5 points right there. So that's the difference of the game right there, is those 2 block kicks. And you add the block punt, which sets up one of our other touchdowns. That's the difference of the game right there. And that's clearly, I think, what happened in this game. The special teams bailed out a horrible defense that played today. And the offense played good enough. And Nick Foles was good enough. He had 4 touchdown passes, which is amazing. But all in all, I gotta say I'm pretty pleased with the day we had. Very enjoyable experience, and clearly I would say, what do you say, half Eagle fans?
Oh yeah, half Eagles fans in the stadiums. It was amazing. We took over.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy on some of the plays where the Giants had the ball. Like there was a very well pronounced defense chant going on.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you guys could hear it on the TV or not, but it was very clear that there was a good defense chant going, especially in the fourth quarter when they were trying to get back in this thing. Yeah. But all in all, I think we had a great day. We had an enjoyable time, and at this point, we got the first round bye locked up.
Yes.
The score I was seeing, I'm assuming Minnesota held on to their 34-0 lead or whatever it was. So I'm sure that they won. So now at this point, we're looking at we have to lock up number 1 seed. Next week, we can get that if we beat the Raiders on Christmas night, or it might even get done for us earlier than that if Aaron Rodgers and the Packers beat the Vikings. So either one of those 2 things happens next week, and then we've got home field locked up, and which means then that the Dallas game is meaningless at the end of the season, which is all cool. And eventually, I think we got to start looking at the postseason and the way the defense is playing. That's the concern I've got. So hopefully the defense, good face. Yeah. I really think that the defense, if the defense plays the way it played today, we're not getting very far. We're one and done is probably right. Because I don't see Nick Foles winning a shootout with a Drew Brees or someone like that. So hopefully this is a lesson that they can learn and move on from. But now it's on to Christmas weekend, and a big game obviously against the Raiders on Christmas night. Hopefully, to wrap up home field advantage. I'll check in before that game and give you my thoughts and my prediction. Until then,
fly Eagles, fly!